to tax state was invented by an Austrian economist and politic, Josef Schumpeter, in text titled Die Krise des Steuerstaats in 1918. So, in a broad outline, the substance of this concept is that in medieval period, the main sources of state incomes was king's domain, king's land, and the challenges of early modern international relationships. First of all, protracted warfare, cost of new weaponry, forced state to impose a new taxes, and taxes became the main source of state finances. The classical medieval fiscal theories told that king should live on his own, and only in a case of emergent he could ask his subjects for help, for financial help. But in early modern period, we can observe some characteristic features of this transition. First of all, the rising of the growing public finances sector, establishing an uniform state treasury, the growing importance of public credit in financing the state needs, and a birth of modern fiscal administration. The thesis of my paper is that some peculiarities of Polish-Lithuanian political culture and limited economical resources. Early modern Poland-Lithuania was a very vast country, but scarcely populated, and the main source of income was land. The commerce were not so intense as in Western Europe. So the limited resources and peculiarities of Polish-Lithuanian political culture caused that the transition, the model of transition from domain state to tax state in Poland-Lithuania was different as in Western Europe, as in France, or in Spain, or in Empire. I will focus on the crown of Poland, so this part of early modern Poland-Lithuania, but the fiscal system in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania was very similar, some minor variations. So, in the middle of, so I will discuss these questions: the growth of public finance sector, the disintegration of crown treasury, and the rise of fiscal administration. So, in the middle of 16th century, the Polish nobility must to confront the challenges of early modern warfare. In Polish case, it was the necessity to maintain a permanent military force on the southeastern borders of the country against the annual Tatar incursions on this. The left Tatars, and they attacked southeastern part of the country. So the first reaction of Polish nobility was to establish a more strict control over royal domain. So, in the 1563, it was decided on a crown diet that one third of royal domain incomes, so-called quarta, from Latin quarta pars, fourth part, went on solely on these military forces on the southeastern borders of Poland. The next step was in 1590, and it was a very modern concept, because it was decided that the state lands, so-called Królewszczyzny, royal lands, this name can be misguiding, because it was a state lands, will be separated from king's private lands, so-called economies or lands of king's stable. So it will be it would be the king's private lands, and the incomes from state lands will go only for state purposes, not the king's private need. But in the first half of 17th century, the intensifying warfare forced to impose a new taxes, but Polish nobility opposed to permanent taxation on their own lands. They perceived permanent taxation as a paving way for royal absolutism, for absolutum dominum, as was in the case of France in 15th century, and they clearly understands the necessity of of finding a new source of income, but the new taxes was also imposed on state domain. It was so-called a new quarta and hiberna, winter quarters tax. Only in second half of the 17th century, Polish nobility understood that new impositions on king's lands are impossible. They would not sustain new impositions, so they agreed to so-called pool tax, general pool tax, universal capitation, even if this tax was very offensive to the nobility's sense of honor, because they would be personal liable to pay this new tax, but it was not for free. They obtained some concession from the king, because in 1763 the quarter treasury, which gathered the incomes from quarter tax, was established, and it was subordinated to grand treasurer, an officer appointed by the king. But the new tax, when the new taxes was imposed in the half of 17th century, it was subordinated to so-called Hiberna Commission, which was elected by the nobility. So the nobility obtained a more strict control over state incomes, and in 1652, the army units there was a so-called repartition of army units amongst palatinates and lands, local administrations units. So the soldiers were not paid from royal treasury, but by local administrations, also elected by nobility from 1679 permanent. So in years 1679, 1670 to 1717, there was a Polish fiscal system. Taxes were collected by local authorities, and under control of fiscal tribunal, also elected by nobility, distributed to soldiers, as in case so-called winter bread fund, incomes from Kwarta, Hiberna, and some minor taxes, distributed by Hiberna Commission to soldiers, and only customs and some minor taxes remained under control of Grand Treasurer and in Crown Treasury, and they goes for other state needs. First of all, diplomacy, paying of civil servants, and so on. The further decentralization was in 1717. There was introduced a general poll tax, but they were collected by army deputies and distributed to soldiers. The same case was in winter bread fund, and customs and some minor taxes was administered by the Grand Treasurer. So the king obtained a general poll tax, a powerful source of incomes, but he lost all control over the majority of state incomes. So, in the field of fiscal administration, we can observe some important features: the declining importance of Grand Treasurer, the growing importance of elected bodies, representatives of nobility, fiscal tribunal and Hiberna Commission, growing importance of military hierarchy, especially Grand Hetman, Commander-in-Chief of Polish Army, and which was a president of Fiscal Tribunal and Hiberna Commission, and army deputies elected by soldiers. The majority of Polish soldiers were nobles, so they have the same rights as noble which not served in army. And we can observe a birth of fiscal courts on the central level, Fiscal Tribunal and Hiberna Commission, and which had some jurisdiction, and on the local level, the so-called fiscal courts in every province. So, my conclusion is that Polish-Lithuanian nobility clearly understands the challenges of early modern international relationships, but they also tried not to lose his sovereignty, not to lose his own liberties, and not want to live in an absolutist state, as in Western Europe. And it was very similar case to England. And England was a far more richer country than Polish-Lithuania. Was England's main source of income was commerce. So the limited resources of Poland-Lithuania and very dangerous international surrounding deny to complete transition from a domain state to tax state in the modern Poland-Lithuania. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. Well, my question, you've you've mentioned this sort of sense of constitutionalism, representative sovereignty in Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. I don't know much about Polish and Lithuanian history. I just remember reading one historical journal article. In there it was stated, is it true or false that at the time of the making of the union in 1569, right, it was the king himself who was sort of for the constitutionalism, for the limitation of his powers in some way. Is it true or is it?
So the king. It was a very complicated question. The Polish and Lithuanian kings want to obtain new sources of income.
Okay.
Also in 15th century or 14th, and to rise and to impose new taxes, they had to make some concessions to nobility. They had to issue some privileges. The constitution of Poland-Lithuania was a kind of compromise between a king and nobility, so-called political nation.
Okay, thank you. But may I ask you an extra question on this issue? Was there any ideological, justification of this political union? In England they talked about this body politic, which is, which you can just a part of. What was the ideology behind Polish and Lithuanian constitution? Maybe it's a very general question.
Yes, the Polish-Lithuanian, in the time of Renaissance, the Polish-Lithuanian politics read Aristotle, Cicero, so there was a shared European tradition of republicanism, simply, so that the sources was, I think, very similar to the sources of republicanism in England or in the Netherlands, Swiss Confederation.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. One tiny question. If you stress this common substratum of kind of Ciceronian humanism on the one hand, and the failure to establish this kind of fiscal military state, as Schomburger says in Poland-Lithuania, I wonder whether it would also make sense to compare it to probably some examples more closer to Poland, for instance to Bohemia and Hungary, where the aristocracy didn't manage to retain these rights in the same time. And I was wondering whether you could say a bit about why you think that in Poland it worked out. Was it only the absence of electoral kingship, the absence of the dynastic rule, or was it the resilience of these ideological structures? Was it the property distribution? It's probably a kind of impromptu answer to this interesting comparative question.
A very complex question in Polish historiography and years of struggle between historians. I think the one source of the Polish-Lithuanian success in 16th and early 17th century was, for me, a weakness of its neighbors. The period of chaos in Muscovy on the beginning of 17th century, territorial wars in the empire, a crisis in the mid 17th century Ottoman Empire. So, but I think there are some social and economic sources as well. After the period of very harsh for Poland-Lithuania warfare in the mid 17th century, almost the whole country was in all lands of country there was some wars. We can observe some changes in property distribution. The aristocracy, the magnates, take majority of lands, and they created some called magnate factions, parties, and they have very destructive influence on the Poland-Lithuania political life. So in 18th century, when international surrounding was far more dangerous for Poland-Lithuania, they did not manage to maintain the sovereignty of the state.